Happy Wednesday, guys. How's it going? And I'm Clayton Allen, host of the Day Trading Plumber and founder here at AllenFX. I'm going to do something different this week on the YouTube channel. I got lots of new subscribers this week, and I am been thinking of doing this, and this is going to be my first week doing so we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to do a midweek review. We're going to go through all the pairs that I go through on my Sunday setups, see how we're tracking along, and we're going to see if we need to move our supply and demand zones, our bullish and bearish zones, and possibly look at any good trades. One of the things I look at midweek is I like to go down to the hourly time frame and just see where price has been moving this week and see where it is in correlation to our S2 and R2 levels and pivot levels. If you want a little bit more insight of that system, I think I have a video here in my channel called A Simple Strategy that I use for some discretionary trades, and or go check out the tradingnut.com or the Trading Nut YouTube channel. I did do a quick good recording version for Cam and his followers on that interview. If you go check that out, that's what I'm kind of looking for midweek, or also I'm looking for, was our prediction Sunday, is price moving that way, or were we completely wrong, and doing some adjustments midweek to try to see if we could close out the week with some good, highly probable trades. All right, let's not waste any more time, and let's jump on over to TradingView, and let's just go from the top down. Some of you have asked me what these colors are. If it's blue, it means I've already recorded a trade idea here on TradingView. If you haven't already gone to TradingView, find me on TradingView and you'll get all those recordings as I put them out. I'm starting to put them here on YouTube. You probably started to see it this week. They added a little button that makes it really easy for me to send those quick videos I do here on TradingView over to my YouTube channel. All right, let's just go from top down and see what we got. So here I'm on the 1 hour, and you can see we had our bullish zone here, and this is actually a trade that we're in. And what I was looking for here, guys, is this was a strong resistance area. It didn't quite get to R2 like that simple strategy would tell you as our entry point. But what I started to look at this pair, and on my Sunday setups, we were seeing, this bullish action off of stalling here on S2, and we started to see we were getting a good support down here. So once price started breaking up, I didn't take a trade from this level, but what I was looking for is price to push all the way up to R2. But once we got to our plotted bearish zone, which is usually 3 or more places where price has shown support, now turned resistance, that's why we targeted that. Just to give you a quick shot of what we're looking for. So that's when I started looking at a smaller time frame. And don't worry, guys, I won't go this far on every pair. But we saw we hit R2 on the 5 minute, and that's when we started to look at a smaller time frame and saw price action. Now we're starting to see divergence, so we could expect a decent pullback here, but I like this trade all the way down to that pivot level here on the hourly. So that's what we got here. I kind of like this now as a support area because we have these two turnarounds and this big breakout. Plus, if we go up to a higher time frame, guys, you can see we're way down here, this big finger. Now, I do think price will eventually retest this bottom, so that's where we have to be a little cautious. But you can see that bottom was really close to this support zone on the monthly way back in 08. So fundamentally, as the markets keep shuffling their way through this turmoil, I like this short trade down to that pivot. And now let's move on to the Australian Swiss franc. So you guys can see here on the hourly, We just had divergence post, but we don't have a really solid break of this trend line. I get a lot of callers on this trend. You draw your trend lines wrong. Look, do what fits you. I'm really just using it as a reference point. Most often, I don't trade off these trend lines. But what I'm looking for, guys, here is if price comes up, hits this S2, which is right into our bullish or our bearish zone here. I'll be looking for a sell trade from up here, but I'm not looking for a buy trade up to it per se. Now, if we get a break of this trend line, I think it's going to race back to this pivot. Could be a good intraday, intra-week move, but more likely on this pair, I'm going to wait until we're in one of these zones, our bullish and bearish zones. All right, let's look at Australian dollar JPY. Okay, once again, we have our bullish zone depleted here because it was support in this range, became resistance, and then we had this good drop. Here's where we see divergence. That's why I have my bullish zone down here. And now you can see that just like most AUD pairs this week, we've had a little bit of bullish move. Now you can see price came up to this area, posted divergence, great time to enter, and now we see some decline, some bearish move after. I personally, I'm not in this trade, but I personally think this is a great target right here. This pivot level could be where price comes back down. Now, once the price gets to that pivot level, I would take my profit, or if you don't get in this trade, I would see if we get a bounce off this or a continuation down to our bullish zone. Then we will adjust our bullish zone from there. Let's go to Australian dollar, New Zealand dollar. Same thing. Bullish activity on the Australian dollar. We got to last week's pivot or the last set of pivots. I want to reiterate that these pivots are a calculated level based on the settings that I have, and go back to my video on that simple strategy and to see those settings. But you can see we're not in any kind of trend line break yet. We're getting close. I guess you could kind of call that we're getting a break. So one thing to do in this scenario, wait for it, wait for a retest of that, confirm this, and then you would short from there. Hopefully you guys can see that. It didn't hit R2. I think we still have some upside possibly on this, but if I get a pull and a retest, I might possibly look at a sell trade. I'd really love a double top scenario in our bearish zone and sell from there. But on this pair, I'm going to sit on my hands and wait for price to tell me what it wants to do. Australian dollar, US dollar, kind of the same thing. We're past the pivot. We didn't hit our R2 or S2 levels. We're kind of in the middle here. Canadian dollar, Swiss franc. I just put a video out about this range trading, right? So we had this big bearish move in this fundamental nonsense going on, and now we have a very predictable range. Price is getting close to this range, so I might look for sell trades here. But what we have to be careful, guys, of this parallel range trading is it's going to break out, and the structure is going to tell you it's going to break out to the bottom side. However, things are starting to turn around economically. We're getting closer and closer to end of a lot of these countries' quarantine period. If we start to see some really good numbers on the virus slowing down, we could see this major reversal break to the upside. So this is not a bad play to range trade, but if you take your trade from here, have a tight stop. Personally, I haven't made any of these trades. I looked at this S2 one, but I think I was already in enough trades for the day and portfolio-wise, and just not wanting to take any more risk. However, if these are two great zones, to range trade, just know we're going to get a breakout. And those of you breakout traders, if you see a big solid breakout, wait for the retest. Wait for that retest, then shoot for the moon. All right, Canadian dollar, JPY. We just had divergence post on the hourly. And as you can see, we're kind of starting to see the range. So this would be a great spot. I think I have this too small. This would be a great spot for an entry on this pair. And I'll just show you what it looks like. Because we have divergence, I love it. Love it back down to that pivot. And you could set a pretty tight stop loss on this trade. And we will see next Sunday if this thing works out. But again, we're in a range, could break out. I love seeing Knoxville divergence here on the hourly chart. We didn't quite get a push all the way up to this R2, which is fine. But if we do see a break, it's highly probable we'll come back down to the pivot level for this time frame. All right, Swiss franc JPY. All right, we just hit R2, people. So we hit R2 on the hourly. Now what we're going to look for is, do we have divergence on a smaller time frame? Not yet. So I would expect price to come back up here. We start to see divergence or Knoxville divergence post, and we get it. You can see we had some on the 1 minute. We've tested that level, and I've told you guys lots of times, this is a great entry just to put in a pending order. But I like this pair. There's two ways to trade this. You could wait for it to come back up, retest this top. That's what usually I do. Or I wait for a break in a smaller time frame trend line. Or you can stay on this time frame. If you get a break of this, you wait for a retest. That's when you enter. And I like it back down to that pivot level. Let's draw it. Bam. All right. Euro AUD. Orange, by the way, means I'm in between my two ranges, just for those of you that have asked. All right, you can see what I got here, right? I've drawn kind of a trend line. I'm waiting for price to come down to this area here. But we can see we're moving back up. We didn't hit S2, so we're kind of in the middle range here. There's nothing really telling me yes or no yet, other than we're starting to see a break of that trend, wait for a retest. That could possibly give us some more information to take a buy trade. But this pair, I'm personally waiting till we see a move to one of these zones. Euro Swiss franc, you can see we took this trade, and we took it because we hit S2, we posted divergence, we waited for the right price action, and that's why we've entered this trade. And now it's a very profitable trade, and it has blown past R2. So anywhere here now, I'll take my profit, but I love it back up to our bearish zone here, which was based on last week's R2. Not a bad, but when I see this kind of a big V shape in this price, it usually tells me it's probably over, and we're starting to see kind of a double top. So this would be where I take my profit or take half of my trade off, and let it run. That one should have been green as an active trade. All right, let's go back to the hourly. British pound or Euro British pound. All right, kind of a mess here. So what we got cooking on the hourly here is we got some fundamentals coming out. It's just been hovering by its pivot, so I'm not getting too excited about this pair. But if we get a push up to this R2 or in our bear zone, we'll start looking for sells. If we get a drop down to this S2, start looking for sells. But you can kind of see, we're starting to see this range, this sideways range going on. If I kind of split the difference between that and that, well, we could kind of play these off these two zones till we see some more confirmation of a breakout. All right, Euro JPY. So you could see we were in a good range. Now we've busted out of that range. This is a great example, guys, of we busted out of the range. We hit R2. We retested the range. And now we're in this bullish move. So long-term wise, if we go up to the daily, you could kind of see price more likely is going to shoot up to that R2. You just got to give it more time and more patience. You could see a considerable retest of this zone. Looks like we've already have right there at that candle. But we're starting to see some resistance, former resistance levels. So what we could do here is move this up. So if we get a retest of that area, we know. But I think we're going to get a decent enough pullback down to this pivot, at least what it looks like on the daily here. And we could easily pull our Fibonacci retracement. We might get something like that. If we do our Fibonacci here on the daily, let's just go from here to here. This impulse leg. And you can see that's the 3.8. So that would change what I think we might get a double top. If we do get a pull all the way down to here in this range, we could see a springboard all the way up to these levels. But right now, you know, not a big fan of just jumping right in this trade. If anything, I would be short from where we're sitting and short down to some of these levels. So some of you intraday, intra-week traders might have a good short opportunity here down to these retracement levels. All right, Euro Nzd. Kind of the same thing, right? I kind of like that there just because that's a very strong level. We broke it here. You know, this pair's just tough. Kind of following that trend line. So, you know, if I had to trade this pair, I think it's still going to go down from here, possibly down to our bullish zone right there. And we can see if we could look for a buy trade at that level. Euro US dollar. You can see we have a pretty decent little trend line going here. That's the pivot right there where I have this bearish. I'm going to move it up now to see if we retest this former high. And if we do, possibly look for a sell trade there. But on the daily, we have this Fibonacci retracement. We're sitting right at the 236. So if we do get bearish movement from here, I would only sell it back down and look for a larger time frame double bottom scenario. And this is going to be a way better buy scenario for the long term. Euro Canadian Dollar. All right, so price didn't really get much past the pivot. To be honest with you, I kind of see a head and shoulders pattern with a break of the shoulder line. So let's just throw in a line here. There's the shoulders. Here's shoulder one, head, kind of get a half-ass shoulder, and then a break and retest of that neckline. I know I'm kind of forcing it, guys, but that kind of tells me we could expect price come back down to this S2, which is a really good bullish zone. We've had three, you know, it was the pivot. Now it's S2 in 2 days. So, you know, that would be the play that I would look for here. I know it doesn't look good on RSI. If we go to a smaller time frame, I could kind of see the head and shoulders a little bit better and then a break, right? So, yeah, I like this at least back down to those levels. British Pound AUD. Oh man, look at this choppy mess. Great scalping pair, I guess, huh? So we, didn't quite get down to S2. We've double bottomed. Now it seems like we have a really tight range. If you wanted to get really tight with this range, you can kind of call this, but I would wait for price to get here and look for a move back to that pivot. British Pound Canadian Dollar. All right. So looks like we made a run, didn't quite get to R2, fell hard and fast back to the pivot, and now I think price is going to sit here until we could get a little bit more information on it. But I'm not going to get bearish unless we get up to this former support, which we did see a little bit of fuzziness here. Tried to break out, it didn't. Very wide range between R2 and S2, showing lots of volatility. So this pair remains to be seen. I mean, one could draw trend line across these bottoms, and if you get a pull back down to that trend line, look for a buy there. But pretty risky right now with this pair. Kind of the same thing here with British Pound Swiss Franc. Pulled up, caught this resistance level. Divergence actually posted, Knoxville divergence to be specific. Big drop to that pivot. And now, we might get a double bottom on that pivot and see if we can't break some new levels. Fibonacci wise, we didn't quite hit the 0.38. So I'd expect it to come back up and hit there. If it does, that's where we're going to get serious, see if we get a big break through it or a pushback down, and in between these two ranges, try to take some scalp trades. All right, so what do we see on this? British Pound JPY. I like where we have our bullish. Price didn't quite get down to S2. It did here and then came back. So if you're willing to go through a little bit of drawdown, you would have got back. And actually, if you held it long enough, you would have been in profit. However, I think we're in between our two target zones. Not a lot to go off yet. It's definitely made some bullish moves this week. Unless we get a good break of this or we come back up and hit R2. If we hit R2 by tonight, I'll be looking for a sell trade from there back down to the pivot. British Pound Nzd, kind of a long trend line. Then you can see some really sporadic moves in between these two zones. This is starting to look like a good support to trade a buy trade off, but these moves are getting more and more. Let's just get rid of this. Just draw a new one across these bottoms. Kind of start to see it wedge battered. So off those two levels, if you're a complete breakout trader, wait for price to break out above or below that. And just have to see what we get. Sorry. All right, British Pound, US dollar. All right, so you can kind of see we predicted this bounce in Sunday back up to the pivot. Great trade. Now it's going to kind of hover around its pivot, and we might see some action tonight. R2's way up here. It's close to the 618. I think because we've seen it kind of hover around this 236 level, I think we might just see it come back down. Might see it just come back down to this support, and then we'll be looking for a buy trade from there. But those of you that took this trade off my Sunday setup video, you had a decent trade. Now, what's funny is we were looking for this we have this missed pivot way up here, And I would have thought we got more production out of that. But we still might. We might have just broke a new high, pull back, and now it's going to shoot up. But that remains to be seen. We're really close to here. Typically, if we break past this level and we see this pullback scenario and it coming back bullish, it's highly probable it's going to come back up to the 382. Highly probable. So let's just go ahead and change that from right where we're at. I like this up to the 382 level on that retracement. And then we're going to pause. We're going to see what we do there. If we start seeing it come back down, we're going to look for that double bottom. New Zealand CAD. Lots of stuff going on here. So I targeted this Sunday just because that obviously is an important level. And then, we kind of predicted price would come up to our bearish territory. We got a breakout of it. Now it's come down and it's done a little bit more of just a retest. So now it's kind of in indecision mode for me. We could probably take this up to here now because we could see here it respected it. We had a lot of indecision here. We've respected it here on this double top. And now, it's more likely it's going to come back to this pivot or close to it. Then we can look for a springboard trade off of it. If we look at this impulse leg here, this pivot's right between the 0.5 and the 618. So not a bad place to look for a buy trade if we want. So we'll be watching that. Nzd CHF, you can see why we have our bullish zone here, right where this finger stopped, and then that's where we got a good retest and movement up. Personally, I think we're starting to see a little bit of a trend test here. If we get a break of that, I like it back down to the pivot. I do like a buy trade from this level if we get all the way back down to our bullish zone. Nzd JPY. You can see we've come up and tested our bearish zone, and now we kind of have a trend break and a retest. If I zoom in on that, you can see big bearish candle, paused for a little bit, bearish again, retest, prices just not, we're really in that confusing area right now. I personally think we're going to see it pull back down to this pivot level. So some of you scalp traders, look at a smaller time frame, wait for the price action, try to enter as high as you can here on this retest and see if you can get a move down to that pivot table. All right. Nzd USD. So I just did a video on this. What I'm seeing here, I'm waiting for this break of this trend line. You can see it came up to the 382, almost to the halfway point. Now, if we get a break of this trend line, we're already sitting on the pivot. So not a lot of movement here. But what I'm going to do is see if we could get it. If this continue it all the way up to the 618, that's where I'm going to sell from. So if we get a break of this trend line, it's not that big of a deal. It most likely could pause on this pivot or even come down to our bullish zone. We'll look for a trade there. But I'm guessing we're going to get up to this area, and then we're going to get a great sell opportunity from there. Nzd Canadian Dollar. I posted a video earlier this week about my sell trade from this right here. I started to see this indecision, and price came all the way down to its pivot. That's where it's sitting. This was a great take profit. I'm kind of looking for a deeper pullback to this 0.5 level before I look for a buy trade, but I am already out of this trade, took my profit, moved on once we start hitting this area here. So right now, You can see I have my bullish zone right and my alert. I like it if we get a deep enough pull to start looking for buys there. USD CHF, again, another trade idea we posted, and looks like we are hit our profit target here on the pivot, and this trade's over now. So now, I'm kind of seeing we're in this downward trend, testing this trend line. We already hit the pivot, so I expect price to come back down to this pivot. If we break this low, I like it to one of these fib retracement levels, just like on the US Canadian pair. I'm only going to be looking for buys if we get it this area right here. You can see there was lots of indecision. It also was a resistance that we broke through. It pulled back to that level. So those of you that are wondering how I select my levels, after staring at charts for 10 years, you just start to see it. You can see that this is a very important level. We've tested it. We broke through it. We retested it. So this is why I chose that. If we continue to see bearish move, more likely it's going to hit this pivot. If we get a strong break through it, we'll start looking at this level for it to drop down to and be a good buy opportunity. All right, US dollar JPY. Here's another trade we took this week, and I didn't quite get to the pivot, but I did take the profit off of it with a trailing stop as it pulled up. We're getting divergence. We're testing this high again, and now you can see we've tested this 111,679 area is becoming a very good resistance level. Now what you do here on a safer side, draw the trend line. If you get a break of that, this pivot is an obvious target. Or if you get a retest of this level, smaller time frame, you see some good price action reasoning, take the sell from up here. But you can see there's lots of tension growing in this pair at this level. Something big is going to happen. Right? You can see we're getting tighter and tighter and tighter. Something is going to happen here, and my guess is we're too close to the 112, which is a really strong support right here. You can see last time we got there. Now, this is that fundamental turmoil, and then this is the panic of people buying dollars in that turmoil. But, the 112 and 109 is just super, super, super big levels on the US JPY. You can see here, that's where we had this turn. If we jump up to a daily, this freak out. Other than that, you can see this is the 108s to 109s right here. This is a very, probable spot for a bottom in normal times. And then we got this big push to the 112s. You could see back in 2019, 112s was hard to break. We're getting very close there now. But great areas to identify. If we get a pull back up to here, great place to sell. If it does shoot up to the 112, that's the R2 on the daily. Great place to plant some good long-term seeds on a sell. But we're starting to see this indecision right here with these daily candles. And as more and more of this coronavirus scare goes away, the more and more stability it comes back to the markets. I personally think we're going to see a break of the downside, and we can take advantage of that down to this bullish zone here, this former resistance. And then we could look for a buy from there. US Mexican Peso. You guys know I don't trade this pair, but I love doing analysis on it. We targeted this R2. Got to the R2. Now we've seen some bearish activity on it. Those of you that trade this pair, hopefully you're taking advantage of it because, man, what a bullish move this pair put on the world. Not a bad time to wait for a retest of this, but I like it to this pivot as a profit target. Great entry would be wait for a retest. But like I said, I don't trade this pair. And if we go to like a daily chart, let's just look at a daily chart and you can get the grasp of this move. Look at that. Completely ignoring all levels and, majorly caused by this turmoil. So a lot of bears looking for some big profits on this move. You can see the R2, calculated R2 is all the way down here, guys. So as more and more things get less scary, that is a great target long term. However, should have entered on up here. But like I said, I don't trade this pair. All right. Well, that concludes. Sorry about that. That concludes this first time this week doing a midweek review. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. And as always, have a great week and let's go make some money together.